And then the COVID, thing. A lot of Trump's supporters are also mad at that. Rightfully,
Yeah.
people have,
Yeah.
been victimized by these vaccines. Children have died
Mhm.
because of them. Um, oh, keep that a secret, YouTube. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, what could we say? Like, where I
you
wasn't
you
sure
can
where you
kind of
would
not
post
hold
this.
back, and then if I feel like cutting something out, or you email me and say, hey, this might get us in trouble, then I'll look
Okay.
at it and see if we'll cut it
Okay.
out. But you see how I do it, as
Okay.
I'm like you in a way. I don't hold
Okay.
back. I kind of say what I know to be at least close to the truth. So anyway, what is your general beginning, middle to present of supporting or not supporting former President Donald Trump?
Expressions
Um,
of love,
It's pretty bright in here, huh? Let me turn this light down a little bit. I wonder if that's better or not. Hello. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Expression of Love podcast. It is your host, Soul Expression indeed. And man, this conversation here is going to have you intrigued and enticed. And it's 2 hours long, and you're not even going to notice. By the time this is over, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I've procrastinated so much because the conversation was just so good, and I've learned so much, and you know, um, I'm so empowered, but I just lost 2 hours of the work I was supposed to be doing, or whatever. Hopefully, you listen to it at a time that you're not too busy. Today, I am speaking with Josh Fontanilla. If you tuned into last week's episode, then you know that last week I was speaking with Kali Fontanilla, and yes, they are indeed married. This is Kali's husband. Kali is Josh's wife, and this was a very, very, very like I'll remember this interaction, and hopefully me and Josh remain cool and friends for long after this, because I really really enjoyed this conversation and enjoyed the way that we can, because we disagree on a lot, but we also agree on a lot simultaneously. Like, we'll disagree with parts of things that we agree on the big umbrella about. You'll see. That'll make sense in a couple minutes when you get into the conversation. But he's just a really cool dude, and so I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. I'm gonna give you a little bit of his bio, and we'll jump right in. Joshua Fontanilla is a credentialed teacher with a master's in both education and business, and is the CEO of Exodus Institute. Joshua is a former public high school teacher who loves history, economics, and biblical studies. He is also a hip hop artist that uses music to educate, and you will hear a snippet of his music in this episode. Um, I didn't leave the full song because of a couple things. One, I don't want to get to a copyright strike on my page, and two, I also do not want to get the video muted. Sometimes they'll just mute you and they won't even let you know that you've been muted, or the email that they send you goes to your spam and you don't know for like weeks that you've been muted. So I don't want that to happen. But you definitely should go check out Josh's music. Joshua is a dynamic public speaker and former California State Director, as well as West Regional Director for BLEXIT. BLEXIT, if you know Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, they have an organization called BLEXIT, which is like the Black exit from leftism. And yeah, man, if you're not familiar with Exodus Institute, it is a fully accredited, I believe, K through 12 school. And it's a school that if you want to homeschool your children, you can get them enrolled in Exodus Institute, and just check that out. That's for the parents and high schoolers out there that are wanting to get out of the indoctrination camp that has become our public school system. Yeah, man, I'm not even gonna say anymore. go ahead, jump right in and enjoy. 3, 2, 1. What up, wide world, and welcome back to the Expression of Love podcast. It is your host, Soul Expression indeed. And today, I have an inquisitive mind. Today, I have questions not only for you, but also for my wonderful guest, who happens to be the other half, if you will, some people say, or the flesh of the flesh of my last interview from last week that you guys just saw. So hopefully, you guys really enjoy this. And help me welcome to the Expression of Love stage, Mr. Joshua Fontanilla. What's happening, brother?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on.
Just living life. Just living life.
Yeah. I'm the behind the scenes half of the Fontanilla family. It seems like, yeah, you just had Kali on recently,
Yep.
but yeah, I'm the behind the scenes half.
Yeah. Well, for you, I just had her on a couple days ago. For the podcast people, I just had her on last week.
Yeah, there you go.
They get released every Friday, so you'll be released on a Friday morning. Where are you from? Where are you guys at? You guys in Florida somewhere, right?
Yeah, we're in Florida. I'm from Salinas, California. So yeah, I'm from a Mexican community, a small Mexican town in California, Central Coast. If you ever heard of John Steinbeck, it's John Steinbeck country.
Okay.
So that's where he's from, east of Eden, of Mice and Men, John Steinbeck, that kind of good. So that's where I'm from. And it's I was raised in a Chicano culture in Salinas. And so that's my
Chicano,
background.
man.
And say again?
Chicano, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So that's what I grew up around. Even though I'm only part Mexican, I'm Mexican, Puerto Rican, and Irish. But I
Okay.
was, among the minority in that dominantly Mexican community. So yeah, that's my background.
Well, hey, I grew up my house was in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I'm not white at all. And my friend group was Black, and I'm only half Black, and I'm half Puerto Rican myself. So look at that.
Okay. We got the Boricua connection.
We got the Boricua
I
connection.
didn't realize that. Okay,
I think
cool,
my
cool.
grandparents might be from the island. If not, then their parents definitely, for sure, all 4 of them.
Yeah. Have you been?
Have I? Oh yeah, I've been to Puerto Rico. Been
No,
to Puerto
I
Rico.
haven't.
It's
I
it's
haven't,
not
man.
the food. The food is kind of yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I was raised on Mexican food, especially
Okay,
like California fresh Mexican
yeah,
food. And man, being in Florida, I miss it. And
yeah.
Puerto Rican, I was not raised on Puerto Rican food. I'm disconnected to that
hmm
side of my family
I'm
because
sure if we went, so I mean, restaurants. Restaurants in the tourist areas are not that good. Now other places, even other places in the Caribbean, like Jamaica, for instance, has some of the best food in the world in the tourist spots and in people's homes.
yeah,
So,
Kali's Jamaican and she makes some good Jamaican food. But I
I
got I gotta admit, man, I think I'm not really into Puerto Rican food personally, other than
yeah.
I love plantains, any kind of Caribbean food that has plantains, but it's too well. I mean, you probably already know we're those California weirdos. We're vegetarians.
Well,
So
I'm a vegan myself. My wife
okay,
my
okay,
wife and I are vegan. I call myself I'm 99% vegan. 98%
okay.
vegan.
Yeah, I'm about the same here. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like
Maybe 95.
we
You know,
bend the
I like
rules, man.
yeah, I like a little bit of ice cream, so
Okay. Okay.
but yeah, that makes it because Puerto Rican food is there's so much meat. I can't
That's
really,
that too. That
yeah.
too. A lot of
So
pork. And the like if I go to an Indian restaurant, I'll get the naan, naan, the bread that they use in Indian restaurants. That's made with yogurt, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. Okay.
yeah,
Or if
yeah,
I'm out somewhere and I'm gonna be there for a couple hours and the only little, snacks or whatever that they have, cheese on them or something like that, I'll eat that.
yeah,
But not a lot, just to tide me over. And then
yeah. I
yeah,
got
so
you.
I don't have restrictions. I have discipline with,
There you go. There
you
you
know.
go. You
I
got a
have
little bit
health
more
goals.
discipline than me. I go out of my way like once a week to like, all right, I'm gonna get my my treat with cheese or my ice cream. Because I gotta tell myself I can.
Hmm.
If I tell myself I can't, then I'm not gonna do the whole vegan thing. I'm just gonna have it in the
Mm,
house and all that. But since I tell myself I can, then I could go treat myself every once in a while, and I try not to have it in the house. That's how I
got
do
you.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, not having it at the house is definitely a big deterrent because I'm gonna go all the way to the store for a snack.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh-huh. That's it, man. I mean, if people could get that trick down, I mean, people who have trouble with diet, I mean, go shopping when you're strong.
right,
Or order it from the house, do that kind of thing where you could just and just as long as you don't have it in the house, that handles 9 times out of 10 your problems.
right,
Yeah.
right, right. And keep the Amazon deliveries to a minimum.
Yeah. Forgive my cat jumping on
So
the desk
yeah,
here.
no, shout out to Melon. They're welcome in the podcast space. Um,
Yeah.
so everybody that is oh, by the way, you guys follow Josh. Say your handle really quick before I ask you this question.
Man, what even is my handle? So I'm on Twitter, but I'm suspended right now on Twitter, but Josh Fontanilla on Twitter and on Instagram, real Josh Fontanilla.
Real Josh
Um,
Fontanilla, that's what it is. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and you'll immediately see that Mr. Josh here does not pull punches. You know, he's not looking for a fight, but he says things straight up, and he's right leaning, as am I. So everybody who's right leaning has a Trump story,
mm,
right?
mm,
Has a beginning, middle, and present of sort of relationship with supporting or deciding to support or whatever Mr. Trump. I personally am very distrusting of all top sort of elite political officials, but
usually a good idea.
I do not deny Trump his due respect for the let's say pushing legislation through and getting things done while he was in the seat. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
The the economy argument from the left is usually something like, well, Obama was doing that. He just caught the tail end of it and didn't really help, which is BS, right? He
Yeah,
he,
no.
he definitely did his part. Yes, it was going down under Obama, but he definitely did his part. He was in office for only half the time and was getting persecuted, like
Yeah,
toward the end of his thing. He was very distracted as well
yeah,
because of
yeah,
the FBI and all of the shenanigans, as well as COVID, and then the COVID, you know, thing. A lot of Trump's supporters are also mad at that. Rightfully,
yeah,
people have
yeah.
been victimized by these vaccines. Children have died
Mhm.
because of them. Um, oh, keep that a secret, YouTube. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking, like, what could we say? Like, where I
you
wasn't
you
sure
can
where you
kind of
would
not
post
hold
this.
back, and then if I feel like cutting something out, or you email me and say, hey, this might get us in trouble, then I'll look
Okay,
at it and see if we'll cut it
okay,
out. But you see how I do it, as
okay,
I'm like you in a way. I don't hold
okay.
back. I kind of say what I know to be at least close to the truth. So anyway, what is your general beginning, middle to present of supporting or not supporting former President Donald Trump?
Yeah, great way to start because Trump is really the reason why I'm a conservative today in a lot of ways. I think I'm very much like you in that I was, looking into both sides and pretty much over both sides before Trump came along. And it was I was raised a leftist. Being in a Mexican community, I mean, it's almost like the air you breathe. It's just assumed, like, okay, we're not racist and we care for the little guy. So we align with the Democrats. That was just kind of the narrative that you grew up with. And I had all my policy positions largely lined up with that, trying to help the little man. And when Obama came along, I really just like, he gave you this false hope because he was a
Right.
blank slate. He pretended to just be whatever you wanted him to be, and he didn't get into specifics. And the fact that he was a community organizer, I don't think a lot of people on the right realize how much of a selling point that is for people on the left. Like, that is why I trusted him. I was like, okay, if this dude went, to all these high ranking schools, and instead of going into the corporate world, he went to go work in the community, that made me trust him. On the right, you may think, oh, that's something to mock. On the left, because we're all about compassion and all that kind of stuff, or if that's where I was, then that was a high selling point for me. Like, I had Saul Alinsky's book back when I thought it was a good idea, when I
Mm.
used to, you know what I mean? Like, I was into the left big time. And so, Alinsky's a community organizer. So I saw Obama's an organizer. Okay, he must be legit, and we're going to get real change. And then he came in, and it was Bush 2.0. He's drone striking people, and cutting food stamps, and it was no different. I mean, the foreign
Oh,
policy was the same.
and signing away our freedom, like
Patriot Act.
without any hesitation.
Yeah, he did the NDAA, so he made the Patriot Act even worse. And then, the foreign wars were the same.
And
I
the
mean, it
surveillance
was
stuff, all of it, which I
the
think is
trade
tied to the
packages.
NDAA, but yeah.
Yeah, the trade packages stuff where he was
Yep.
like, okay, he was trying to push through the Trans-Pacific trade deal. So he was trying to send our jobs over. It was like, it's all the same. So after Obama, I was completely disillusioned. And I was like, both sides, forget them. They're both corrupt. I was never on the right before then. So I didn't fall for all the Iraq war stuff. I was against all that. But when Trump came along and he was attacked by both sides, that was a major, not red flag, but like, I like this guy. If they hate him, I like him, right?
Mm,
And
okay.
you know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
So let me ask you this in the middle.
Okay.
So you saw that the my enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of vibes, yeah?
At least I'm going to look into it.
Right. Okay.
Like,
Okay. Keep going.
yeah. So, I mean, if you guys are that much, if you're united in hating it, then, I mean, there might be something good there.
Were you already on to the collusion between the corporate media? So that the CBS News, the CNNs, the MSNBC,
Yes.
and the
Yes,
government.
but from a liberal perspective, because back then
Okay.
that was a liberal position. So I was a big fan of Noam Chomsky. I don't know if you've ever heard of Noam Chomsky. He's a classical liberal, a dinosaur now. He's 90 something years old probably, but he's very, very famous and respected on the left, or used to be. But because he's, for like free speech, things that they used to believe in, he gets a little demonized by the left now. They kind of throw that old dinosaur away. But he used to be like one of their, he was like a saint on the left. And
Mm.
that was like my hero when I was a liberal. And he has a book called Manufacturing Consent, which is actually a fantastic book. You could, because all it does is it shows the connection between, his thesis is if a corporate news entity is owned by, XYZ corporation, right? Because they're all parent companies, right? Then it's very simple. All you need to do is look into what's the financial interests of the organization, of the business that owns the news corporation. They are going to push things that support that's going to make them money. And so, I mean, if there's influence from Lockheed Martin, they're going to push war. It's not very complicated. And what they do is they approach it from an academic perspective, and they say, well, let me break down the minutes that they spend. So they look at like the Iraq war and say, how many inches in the newspaper, in newspaper columns were given to the anti-war side of the argument, how many inches were given to the pro-war side. And they calculate it, and they show, okay, well, it's not even close. They're able to show just by the numbers, by the amount of minutes on primetime TV, by the amount of inches on, major newspaper articles, which side is getting more time. And so it was anti-corporate media, and it was anti this idea that the corporate media is pushing the agenda, but it was from a leftist perspective back then, because that's when it
Right.
used to
Well,
be
like you said, liberal
anti-corporation.
perspective. Like you said, it
Okay,
was a
yeah, you could
liberal
say that.
perspective because
Yeah,
leftism is a religion. Liberalism is more like a process, like an approach. You know what I'm
got you.
saying? Whereas
Yeah,
leftism is like a whole like it's my way or the highway religion. You know.
yeah. And I'm sloppy with those terms sometimes, but I just
I
generally
just
mean people on that side, But
I didn't mean it as a
anyway,
correction. I meant it as
no, no, it's
there's
fine.
a
No,
way to
no,
think
no.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And you
So
know, before you
go ahead.
well, I just want to add to what you were saying too. Um, and I got this from Candace Owens' podcast, which I think puts a lot of what you just said into perspective, especially with the fear mongering around war. The wars are never ending, right? The war on poverty here fought on this soil,
Hmm.
$22 trillion since 1964. $22 trillion, right? Not
Yeah.
B, not M,
Whenever
T, trillion.
whenever I hear that, I always think of the Tupac line. Whenever I hear that, I always think of the
What,
Tupac line, right?
which one?
Instead of a war on what is it? Instead of a war on poverty, they got a war on drugs so the police can bother me.
War
And
on
it's so
drugs,
funny,
$1 trillion.
but it's like there
Right,
was a war on poverty. It was such a
right,
like glib, like there's no war on poverty, and you just mentioned the numbers. Like it's
right.
ridiculous how much money they
No,
spent on it.
well, here's the thing. It doesn't help,
It doesn't. No.
right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
war on poverty, where so far the government has spent 22 plus trillion dollars. Black Americans are poorer today than in 1964 when the war started. War on
Yeah.
drugs, $1 trillion so far. Again, not B, not M, but T.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
people don't really conceptualize when we hear like huge numbers. We don't think, okay, like what would an extra $1,000 do for me right now? A trillion?
No.
A
Yeah.
$1 trillion spent on the war on drugs, and there are more people addicted to drugs than ever in human history here in this land. The war on COVID, $5 trillion,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the unvaccinated are dying at a higher rate than the vaccinated are now dying at a higher rate than the unvaccinated, which many conspiracy theorists would argue was the case the whole time, but I digress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we have the war on terror, which is what you were talking about. So far, $6.4 trillion, and if we add in the war on Ukraine, then that adds another 58 billion to this war on terror, because they're saying Russia is terrorizing the Ukrainian citizens, so we need to go help Zelensky.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and not including Ukraine, 45,000 deaths to the soldiers when you include suicide from PTSD. When you include that, 45,000 soldiers, that a lot of them had families, a lot of them were, straight up and down strong men,
Mm.
and women, but obviously not as much because we're talking about combat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And just gone for this war on terror that never ends. We
It's not supposed to end.
never end the war on terror, and we don't fight to win,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? We don't
It's not
go
supposed
in
to end.
and like any TV show or book that has a hero, we don't go in, bust down the president's door, hold a knife to his neck, and say stop. Tell him to
Mm-hmm.
stop
Mm-hmm.
right now,
Mm-hmm.
or else.
Well,
We don't fight to win.
that's the kind of thing Trump was doing. It
Right.
was
Well,
like,
he was
okay,
threatening. Yeah, they left him alone.
yeah,
They
it was
said,
like, oh,
okay, he may
he was like Al
I
Qaeda.
don't think
Yeah, Al
he's
Qaeda
like the
don't
other
exist.
guys.
Well, no, what was the group? Now I'm mixing them up. What was the group in Iraq that took over? Not Al Qaeda,
Taliban.
the junior. Obama called them the JV squad. What?
The Taliban.
No, it's not the Taliban, right? The
In Afghanistan, there is.
is
I
in
don't know.
Afghanistan. I'm talking Iraq. The ones
Oh, my bad.
that took over. See, now it escapes me. The
Forgive me.
JV
Yeah.
team. Yeah. So who did Trump take out? It was that caliphate that was taking over Iraq.
Oh, okay. And Trump came in and Finish
and
the
wiped them
story.
out. And wiped them
Okay.
out. Yeah. And it was like he took all their territory back. So he was playing to win. Got the job, which is why they hate him. You're not supposed to win. And then we
You're
don't
not
have
supposed to
this.
win and come back with a victory. You're
Yeah,
supposed
because
to
then
launder
we can't run
money.
on that
Yeah.
forever. Yeah. It's like abortion too, Bush and all them. Oh yeah, we're gonna stop abortion. We're gonna do it. And Trump actually came in, and you could say he wasn't perfect in his personal views on it, but that dude did more to stop it. I mean, Roe v. Wade's gone now, right?
I mean,
Than any
you
of
don't
them.
have high officials even uttering pro-life. And yet he said,
Yeah.
when he was questioned by one of the left-leaning journalists, he said, no, I don't believe in making people do things they don't want to do, but I happen to be pro-life. And
Mm,
it was no fear. It was no,
mm,
like I said, I give the devil his due. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
I don't trust him on principle because he's too high up. He's way too
Okay.
removed from somebody like me to just trust.
No, I
But
get
I
you.
give him his due.
Yeah, yeah. I get you.
You feel me? I
Yeah,
don't,
yeah.
I would wear a MAGA hat. Sure. Why not? I don't give a damn. You know what I'm saying? Let's make America great again. It's not
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily heading towards greatness right now with the
No.
takeover of leftism in our youth. That's not
Yeah.
heading us towards greatness. So sure, I'll wear a MAGA hat. I don't give a damn.
Mm, mm.
That doesn't mean I'm a
Yeah,
Trump supporter. It means I want to. It means I'm behind this movement, though.
yeah, yeah. No, I got you. Yeah, when he got attacked by the corporate press and by, the Mitch McConnells and the Paul Ryans
Yeah,
and the Obamas and the Clintons and was coming after them, I was like, I like that dude. And that got my interest. It wasn't enough to make me a supporter yet, but it got my interest. And then from then, I don't know if you remember, but when he ran in 2016, he had policy speeches that he did where he would, it was a lot of, and it was throughout the whole campaign, a lot of bravado and a lot of like exaggerated statements, because that's how you run in a primary. I mean, people may not like it, but if you don't like that, you need to change American culture, because that's what wins in American culture. Like he just played to win, so he was like, okay, while bravado statements get you attention, I mean, that's what AOC does, except she does it with like her head up her butt because her statements are so ridiculous, right?
I feel
But
like if she was ugly, she would not have any
no,
seat.
if no, that would be nice. No,
I
anyway,
don't. Well, I mean, I personally think she's definitely not ugly, but I think if she was physically
yeah, no,
ugly,
I hear you. I
then
hear you.
she
There's a
would
lot of
not.
people
I mean,
yeah, no, I hear you. There's a lot of people who think she's attractive, and that's the main.
yeah,
Yeah, I
like
mean, ever
controversy
since
sells and sex
looks,
or
yeah,
sexiness
yeah.
sells. You
I
know.
mean, since Kennedy, right? Since
Thank
it's
you.
been a TV campaign. Nixon was out of luck. But anyway, so his policy speeches, he got my attention by the fact that everyone hated him. But when I heard his policy speeches, where he broke down, and I still to this day, like, you could go back and listen to his foreign policy or his policy speeches on economics, on foreign policy, on domestic policy, from the 2016 campaign, and I was floored because I had never heard a political candidate break down in detail. Obama like hinted and vague stuff like he's going to fix some of these problems, but he never got into specifics because he wasn't planning on actually fixing them. But Trump, the way he went into detail, this is the problem, this is how we're going to solve it. I mean, 98, 99% of what he said were my policy positions already. And I was completely like, if this is what this dude is going to do, 100% I'm on board. Let's do it.
Word.
Like, I mean, the trade deals, the ending foreign wars, those were my positions when I was a leftist. Stopping immigration was my position when I was a leftist. I mentioned I'm from Salinas. In California, the area that I'm from, it's an agricultural community, right? So the Salinas Valley is known as the salad bowl of the world. That's the nickname. Like, our local TV station is
Mm-hmm.
KSBW, K Salad Bowl of the World, right? And that, like, if you go to the store and you look at your strawberries, wherever you are in the country, in America, anywhere, East Coast, doesn't matter. Look at your strawberries. 9 times out of 10, they're from Salinas, Watsonville, which is a nearby town. So we're an agricultural community. So the ag, like, the history of the labor movement among farm workers was big among us. So you've heard of Cesar Chavez, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay,
He se
so
puede.
Cesar Chavez, yeah, he did marches through Salinas in the 60s, right? Like,
He hated illegal immigration.
yes, yes. I actually have a song I'm putting out about that pretty soon. We're
Okay.
talking
Yeah,
music
no,
soon, but
he
yeah.
said, well, you know, I'm not gonna misquote the brother, but he actually was, I guess the word is lobbying for harsher treat treatment. Again, I'm not trying to
Closing the
put words in
border.
his mouth of yeah, of
Yeah,
people that break that law. Like, no, we have legal means of getting in here and becoming a citizen and working for the proper wage. You are hurting us farmers and the rest of the country's, you know, working class,
yeah.
especially the lower working class, because you're coming in and you're willing to work for 5 cents,
Hmm.
12-hour shifts. And of course, they're going to hire you under the table because
Yep.
they need to keep their lights on, whatever. You know, of
They
course
were just
they're gonna
replacement
hire you under the
workers.
table. But you're harming us because now I'm out of a job,
Yes, you
right?
cannot, and now I'm anti-union, but back then, because I view unions as the basic fundamental block of a
Hmm.
shift toward communism. But I get the idea of fighting for the workers. Now,
Hmm.
if I'm going to do that, my perspective now as a conservative, the way you do it is tariffs, right? You tariffs and eliminating illegal immigration. That's how you raise the average worker's wages, not unions. But I get the theory and the good intentions behind unions. And his idea at that time was if a union wants to have a strike to raise wages and demand our employer raise our wages, if you can just bring in replacement workers, illegal immigrants, to just, like you said, for 50 cents on the dollar, what you pay us, then you're going to break the strike easily. And the workers will never have the power to raise their wages, raise their conditions. So Cesar Chavez hated it. The sad thing is today, the average in my community and Mexicans in my area where I was from, they have no idea what Cesar Chavez's positions were on these things. No, like he
Right.
did a march called the Illegals Campaign. Like if you're watching this and you never heard this, go look up the Illegals Campaign, Cesar Chavez. And it was a march to the border to protest the fact that they were letting all these illegal immigrants in. And by the way, he called them illegals.
Yeah.
And when
Well, which
people
is
try to say, oh,
descriptive. Which is
yeah,
descriptive. You know, it's not a
it,
diss.
it's not, it's just, and that wasn't, I mean, he called them worse things than that. I mean, I'm Mexican, so I can say him. I mean, some of the things that he would say. But if you look at
Well, he
Cesar
wasn't
Chavez,
targeting them because of their nationality. He was targeting their actions.
the actions, right? Yeah. So anyway, but those are some of the positions I had as a liberal back in those days, and I had left it, and I was kind of politically homeless. And then Trump comes along and he repeats these same things, and he repeated them and said, "Look, we're not trying to keep illegal immigrants out because we hate Mexicans. No, we're trying to do it because we're trying to. You can't raise the wages of Americans, and if you can just have replacement workers." And by the way, I don't know if people know this, but Mexican gangs. I don't know how familiar you are with California Mexican gangs, but it's basically divided into North and South. And the
Okay.
entire gang war, the entire thing is rooted in the idea of Mexicans who are already here, called Chicanos, right?
Hmm.
Mexican Americans who are already here versus the replacement workers, the immigrants who are coming in and then lowering the wages, taking the jobs, that kind of thing. And those are the Southerners, right? The whole thing, red versus blue, North versus South, Norteños versus Sureños, is all based on that struggle
To this day.
to this day. And people don't know this history. And in fact, the symbol for the Northerners, the Norteños, is Cesar Chavez's symbol. And if you ever watch his march, you'll see him. He'll have a red flag because he was a communist. I don't agree with that, but he was.
Yeah.
He'll have a red flag with an eagle on it. That's kind of very square.
Hmm.
That's the symbol of, you'll see them tatted. Norteño gangsters will be tatted with that bird. And so that's that's where it's all from. It's basically having the same position as Trump, but you can't. Anyway, so that was, long story short, I very much became a Trump supporter from that. And the other reason why was I've never liked seeing people get piled on. I always kind of like to fight for the underdog.
Okay. Okay.
So when I saw him be piled on by the news media, and I would literally watch, CNN or whatever it is, and I would see, okay, Trump said this, they lie and they say this, and I'm yelling at my TV like you're blatantly lying to us. And I couldn't stand the news media anymore, but I wanted to know what was going on. And at the time, I was doing a job where I was driving around with a truck route, so I could listen to talk radio. So my alternative, I wanted the news, couldn't watch the corporate news because it would just make me too angry. So I turned on Rush Limbaugh, and I listened to Rush Limbaugh for, over a year through the whole election thing. And I'll tell you, there was times where I would get mad at Rush and I would turn it off at the beginning. I was like, who is this? This guy
It goes pretty far, huh?
Well, I didn't get his humor at first.
Okay.
I didn't get, like, he would make jokes, he would make jokes against ethnic minorities and things like that,
Yep.
right? And I didn't get until I heard, oh, wait, he also makes jokes against white people. He also makes jokes. He made fun of everyone. And once I got
he's like Family Guy.
he didn't care. He was making fun of everyone, man. So once I got that, I could laugh along. But at first I was like, oh, he's the racist that, CNN told me he was. But once I listened for a long, and then he really he introduced me to Thomas Sowell and really laid out conservatism for me. And I realized it's basically the same principles that I already had.
No, yeah. Shout out to Rush Limbaugh. He got his reputation for the left is zero. And it's because well, first of all, when he was at his, let's say, peak, no, there wasn't this influx of podcasters on, and YouTube even wasn't even what it is now, and just people didn't come to his defense creatively, and I think we have a problem on the right of uplifting voices that are effective. We don't do enough to sort of say, hey, I want attention on me too, but first let's support this guy over here because this guy over here is effective, and he already has a team and already has somewhat of a following, and has potential to make America great again.
A lot of the stuff's just money. I'm coming to conclusion more and more, unfortunately, that a lot of times our side is just all about money.
Well, both sides are just all about money. It's just, but it's crazy because we don't have it.
Yeah.
we have Twitter now, but we don't have Meta and which is Facebook and Instagram. For those of you out there who don't know, we don't have Meta. We don't have the MSNBC, CNN, CBS. CBS is a mother company of like almost all news. Right? CBS is crazy huge. We don't have Disney. We don't have. They have the money. Right. And this is before you get into like the international left, right? The World Economic Forum, World Bank, what's it called? The nations, the
UN.
The nations, the UN,
United Nations. Yeah.
Yes. This before we get into all of that. So the money kind of is in one place. So we really need to focus more on culture, like Candace Owens often says on her podcast, and be creative, right? We need to mobilize people and see the mistake, right? Learn from the mistake, humanize the left a little bit, learn from their mistake, and say and see this is what happens when you're hyper focused on the money and you succeed in getting it. You're going to be corrupt, right? We have to humble ourselves. We have to remember the right can also go too far. Right. Obviously, the left has gone way too far. Sure. Yes. No disagreement there. But we can also go too far. Right.
Yeah.
And become the very thing that we wish to defeat. It's crazy, too, thinking about what you said about the gang, specifically the Mexican gang wars in the north, between the North and the South. And thinking about the policies put forth by I almost don't even want to say his name, Gavin Newsom, this
Oh,
socialist weirdo who who is a pretty good speaker. He can create an illusion of an argument pretty quick off the top
yeah,
of
he's
his head
kind of
on a lot of issues.
he's like poor man Obama, in
Low
the,
key,
yeah,
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 on
yeah,
that same rhetoric train, if you will.
yeah.
But it just a whole, like I said, a socialist weirdo. Just
No, it's out there, way out there. Yeah. And I'm sure you kind of come to the same conclusion. A lot of people are, where it's like, yeah, I used to be on that side, but man,
I
what
almost
is
ended
wrong
up
with
in
you guys?
California. I almost ended up in California in
Yeah.
2016, but God said no.
Mm, mm. Huh.
Don't go over there.
Glad, man. It's we we literally fled the state, left our cushy jobs. I mean, public school teaching, it was cushy, and in California it's well paid. And we
Mhm.
literally went across the whole country, gave all that up.
Yeah.
My wife was tenured. I was on my way to getting tenured, and just because we could not be around those kind of crazy I honestly didn't trust living around those people. I mean, they're more COVID restrictions, and yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. And the things that we were going to have to do, we knew coming down the pipeline as teachers, public school teachers, they were going to demand us to go along with the
Yep.
pronoun things. And I
Yep.
never went along with it. And I was like, I'm not going to, so I'm going to have to leave before you guys fire me. So, yeah, it's kind of where we're in. But it's like growing up as a leftist and now looking at their positions now, I'm just like, man, I just want to smack them and just like wake up, like not like attack, but like wake up. Like, how did you believe any of this stuff 10 years ago? I
Like
know you
I
didn't.
wish I could wave a wand and then the information and wisdom that comes from the right, or let's say the right, the smart of the right, because there's
Yeah.
some dummies over here.
Yeah.
If I could just implant that information so that you had the facts and statistics and the things
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
own head, you guaranteed would either say, well, I'm just a classical liberal, or you would be a 100% conservative, which is what happened to
Or
me.
mm-hmm.
Right? What
Yep.
happened to me was I went full conservative, and actually, let me go ahead and share something with you that I wrote when I was first switching over. So one of the things that happened after I interviewed your wife, Kali, the first time, the first time
Okay.
she was on the podcast, is she hit me up and said, "Hey, there's this Vice interview that I'm going to be a part of. Are you interested in New York? The one that she just did in New York not too long ago." And I was like, hell yeah. What should I do? What do I do? And she sent them my information. I think it was a little too late for them to get me a ticket, because
Mm-hmm.
they seemed to like my interview process or whatever. But in that, I prepared some notes that I was gonna try to memorize, like on the plane, and bring as preparation. Let me share those with you, because
Okay.
they're the first like compilation of my um conservative thoughts
Okay.
that I ever compiled. Here they are. So let me actually share the screen too. Schools should teach about world slavery and tribalism before teaching about American slavery and racism, because the global context of American slavery has been lost, and on yeah has been lost, and the lessons on American slavery are taught in divisive ways. Most people don't know that 85 to 95% of Africans brought to the
Mm-hmm.
New World were already slaves.
Yeah. This is Thomas Sowell stuff, right?
Right? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
what we're taught to say is
The
we were
opposite.
kings and
Yeah.
queens, we were
Uh-huh.
mathematicians, we were
Mm-hmm.
alchemists, we were
Uh-huh.
no, we were not.
All compassionate. and living in
Well, yeah,
harmony, singing
and that
Kumbaya.
Thanksgiving is a slap in the face to the indigenous Americans because they were just all peaceful, and then this
Who were
white man
also, yeah,
came
they
and
were just smoking peace pipes, man. They were all
yeah.
just getting along. Everything was so great. I mean, the Aztecs were just, they would go to the smaller tribes and just have hug sessions. No, no,
We're all on
that is not
ayahuasca.
how it was.
On racism today, it says schools should share statistics of unarmed blacks killed by police. Excuse me, statistics. Yeah, of unarmed blacks killed by police when talking about racism amongst cops, meaning should share the statistics because they don't share the statistics,
Hmm.
right? This sounds on the
Hmm.
surface like they should share the statistics because they're huge. No, they're very small, is the point.
Yeah, yeah.
2015, the height of the BLM, right? When Say Their Name became popular, and I think
Well,
Sandra Bland
and
might have
some of
been
that
the
was occult stuff. I don't,
um at
go
the
into
height of
that deep, but
4% of fatal police shootings were unarmed black people. 4,
hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
The rhetoric, you
Hmm.
would think it was 94%.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know,
Yep.
schools and Democrats should share statistics of how many black arrests are of repeat offenders when
Hmm.
they talk about longer sentencing of black suspects. Most states have basically set it up so that repeat offenders get longer sentences as a form of punishment for you keep
Yeah.
doing the same thing. Now, this is just notes, and in my
Yeah.
head, I already am keeping in mind, this doesn't mean that prison reform is not a thing we should do, right? We should
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously reform the
Yeah.
prison system.
No,
And
it's horrible. Yeah.
yeah, like
But you know what's crazy? This is
mm,
another one of those left-wing positions or, liberal
mhm,
positions that used to be, they just switched sides on their positions. So in like the 80s and the early 90s, it was the argument coming from minority communities against the establishment was you're racist because you don't police our communities enough.
right.
Because the repeated argument was if somebody stood on a corner in a white neighborhood and was selling drugs on the corner, the cops would be there like this and get rid of them. But that happens in the ghetto and nothing happens, right?
Mhm.
Why don't you send the cops to come arrest these people, right? And then it was okay. We sent the cops to come. The establishment sent them to come arrest, and it was why are you sending these cops to come arrest them, right? It was
Why are
just
you
it's just
victimizing black bodies?
its critical theory is just you criticize whatever the current position is, it doesn't matter. And once you realize that game, you realize there's anything that you can do is going to satisfy leftists, or liberals, because the goal is not to be satisfied, the goal is to complain. But for me it was like, I remember what is the Tupac lyric, and you could see I was 90s West Coast
Yo,
kid.
shout
I
out
got
to
all these
Tupac, man.
Tupac's
Look, hey,
lyrics, but yeah, no, he was
you won't get no hate from
sent
me on that, brother.
yeah. But it was send more troops. You remember that
Right.
line? Send more troops. That was the line. Like they're acting up. Send more troops. Right. That was the line, and so. But then it completely reversed. They used to. I remember there was a leftist or liberal activist, black activist in the late 80s, early 90s. Name is Davy D.
Okay.
Kind of a hip hop personality, and
Okay.
he's an old cat now, but Davy D, and they used to go and do protests of gangster rap by taking the CDs, going in front of the record studios, and breaking the CDs and having the protest that way and saying you are poisoning our community with this garbage, and here is all these white executives. They would use a lot of racist kind or
Well,
racial
they
tension
do
kind of
happen to be
terms.
white
It
and
was
they do
true.
happen to be
Yeah.
Jewish, and
Yeah.
that doesn't
Here's all
mean
these.
that
And
all right. That doesn't mean all Jewish people
yeah.
or all white people are doing this, but they do happen to be white and Jewish.
And from the outside, when you're looking at it, it's like, okay, well, why are you putting that stuff into our community or promoting it into our community, right?
Right.
But and then it completely shifted, and Tupac actually was a lot behind that, of getting it so that we can say this stuff and we're actually trying to help. And I mean, as much as I loved Tupac when I was growing up, it was nonsense,
Well, I think that was good hearted but unwise. You know what I'm saying? Because his music was both. It was like a yes and. You know, some of it was
Yes.
full of rage, but a lot of his music that had rage in it had a couple humanizing qualities about it. Not all of it, not especially
This
not
is
his diss
true.
records and stuff, but
Yeah, this is true.
he would approach the situation like this is our reality, and this part about it sucks, but this part about it is beautiful.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is Black America, and this part about it sucks, but this part about it is beautiful. And he had that kind of approach, and again, not in all of his rage-based lyrics, but in a lot of them. And
Yeah.
there was so what he meant is I can say this stuff, and you can't
Uh-huh.
limit me, and you can't tell the record labels to limit me to be able to say this. Not that they would approach Suge anyway, but but you can't limit me from saying it. That's what he should have said. But he said you can't limit us from saying it, and that gave the sort of knuckleheads um a free pass. And really, I would have staged the protest where I would go and try to find the next place that the rapper is speaking at, and that's where I would go break the CD. Because
Well, and
yes,
that,
the
yeah.
record company is rewarding this bad behavior by giving them tons of money, cars, clothes,
Uh-huh.
um, and fame, right? And pushing this
Mm-hmm.
and paying the radio station, you need to play this at least 35 times a day. We're gonna
Uh-huh.
audit, you know.
Payola.
um,
Payola's real.
yeah, payola is super real in the
Uh-huh.
music industry, especially hip hop. Hip hop
Mm-hmm.
was still being birthed, at
Yep.
the time versus, classical or jazz or blues or whatever. So there is a system that promotes and mass distributes this garbage to the minds of the youth, but it doesn't get distributed if it's not created. And so
Yes.
my
Let's
pushback
not let the
on,
artist off the hook.
yes, is we're letting the art, which there's heart in that, but we can't like, how long until we say, okay,
Well,
well, maybe we do have to take responsibility for our own actions and stop making the shit.
yeah, like I used to always, and this was back in MySpace days where you could argue with somebody like Davey D. I used to argue with them on MySpace back when I was in college, but and I would bring up these points like, hey, if we can shame the record company, when are we going to get to the point where we're shaming the person who's destroying their own community or helping to destroy their own community
Thank you.
by creating this garbage? Like you can't tell somebody like Jay-Z, where he bragging about, pushing this destroying drugs, just drugs that just destroy people. I mean, what crack does to people, right? Bragging about just making money off that. I like to compare it to, and I know people hate the I won't even use the term because I don't want you to get sent. Well, you can
Again,
delete it if you want.
just fly
Yeah.
off the handle and we'll see.
Okay. But people don't like Holocaust comparisons, and I get it. But there was the comparison of the Jews who worked who were like the officers who helped the Nazis, right? The ones who like would be in charge of, hey, you guys need to go onto this train, or they would be in charge of the prison camps, and so they were working to help the enemy. And to me, that's like the worst thing you could do, right? You're destroying your own community, right? And that's how I look at it with somebody like Jay-Z and these people who are destroying. I mean, if anybody should be shamed in a community, it should be them. Drug dealers should be shamed. It's very uncommon, very rare where you are put in a situation where you have to. You don't really, most of these people, oh, I have to. Tupac had the song, "Why'd you sell crack?" Because I had to. No, it's not. And he actually admits that, where he says, yeah, I tried it once and then I didn't, and I gave it up and I didn't do it. Okay, did he die? No. Like he didn't starve because he wasn't selling crack, right? Very rare where you're put in a situation where you could even say you had to. You didn't have to. You didn't want to go work at some job where people would make fun of you and your peers would make fun of you because you're at McDonald's or something like that. You didn't have to destroy people in your own community. And
Well,
so
and here's the
it's
thing too, my
gross.
brother. Here's the thing too, is you don't have to go work for anybody else.
There's lots of things you could do.
You can mobilize people behind a movement and create something together where you're solving a problem and getting paid for it. This is the American way. This is capitalism, or well, let's say free market capitalism at its best. You see problems, let's say, I don't know, litter and dirt. You see problems, you know some of your neighbor, because we weren't all addicted to our phones and always only the elderly were staring at the television all day, right? We were outside.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know some of your neighbors, you know a couple of them that agree with the way that you think. And so you don't have to be the lead, but you can mobilize people behind a movement of making the projects look better. Getting the best graffiti artists instead of the not so good graffiti artists, and doing certain community projects that they would absolutely love to be a part of. They would lose no street cred for it, you know what I'm saying? And then you look at the problem of violence. You get together some strong people, some strong brothers, and together pull some money together, some group economics together to hire a trainer. He trains the first 10, and then y'all train the rest. And now you have a task force, if you will, for the violence. You know what I'm saying? For some of the, obviously, you're not going to eliminate violence. You're not going to eliminate crack. You're not going to eliminate litter. But you don't have to go work for the CVS or the Walgreens or the McDonald's. If you're struggling, you can create something, and that's what we're not. That's my biggest problem with public school. That
Well,
right
you
there.
don't think outside the box.
They
if
train
go
you to be
public
an
school.
employee.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
or a
you're right.
teacher. Either
You're
a
right.
teacher or an employee, and that's the only permissible life path that the curriculum is going to include in it. You know what I'm
Because
saying?
that helps the regime for totalitarianism, whereas
Helps the state.
capitalism, freedom, the republic is really based on small businesses.
You
that's the
solve a
essence
problem
of
and
it.
you get paid for it, and you
Small
support your
business.
family.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's
Small
all it is. Or
farmers,
you
things
improve
like
on a
that.
process, right? That's the two
Yep.
pillars of business: solve problems, improving a process, and then you get paid for it.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
You know, but we're not taught this. So all of this was on my mind.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Not all of it, but some of this, and it's more refined now than it was back then, was on my mind. And I sent these notes to Kali, and she replied back. She said, "Oh, bro, you're definitely conservative." And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And then I started putting "I am conservative" at the end of some of my social media posts.
So what would you say, what is your underlying philosophy as to why you're a conservative? Like what's the reason why?
Good question.
Where does that come from? Or what are some core principles?
Honesty, integrity. So integrity, the meshing together of honesty and integrity, right? Being honest with your words, but then also being an honest man. And I think conservatives that are, let's say, true conservatives, if you will, are conserving ways to build children into that, right? Honest people. So I really resonate with the honesty principle.
Okay.
In
Integrity.
conservatism, which is tied to why a lot of conservatives are religious people.
Yes.
Right? Because you don't really get the meaning from being honest until you can relate it to something higher than human beings, which would be God.
Yes.
Any name, God, Allah, universe, source, whatever you use. So I like that, and I respect religion and whatnot. So that's one thing, but also there's enough problems on the left that could sustain my conservatism alone. Specifically, the attack on children,
Okay.
right? And specifically, the trans attack on children.
So some of it is counter reactionary to the crazy left, and some is based on, kind of principles of honesty and integrity. Like, have you ever gone through, because I know I did when I was in my 20s and tried to like idealize what the perfect society, at least on this earth, this
Oh, did I go
imperfect
through a
earth would look
socialism
like.
phase?
Yeah, well, that, and I mean, because I went through that, but I also went through, like, I think the ideals of the American Republic were that was a great way to do it.
Okay. So,
Minus
well, I
slavery,
learned I
because
learned
that's not
about
part
the
of the
founding
ideals.
fathers' ideals after watching Hamilton. Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? If you're getting interrupted in the middle of this episode, then that means it must be time for the expression of rhyme. That's right. It is now time for me to interject this rap verse into this episode, touching on one or more of the topics that my guest and I are engaging in. Make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already had the chance. Please leave a comment highlighting what your favorite lyrics from this verse are, and enjoy. Born on the left, but ascended to the right, not just in politics, but righteous in the fight. Progressive policy is built on a lie, placing people on pedestals unearned in the plight. And Obama made the people believe he was the savior, so people left Christ and started praising the behavior of inclusive language, exploiting the anguish of black people just to get the vote without the labor. Same as crack selling to avoid minimum wage, or destroying the community you come from for fame or money and recognition from your spiritual enslaver, to take responsibility and stop with the creation of music and content that celebrates death. Instead, why not teach or commemorate depth, substance, and things that can obliterate debt, empower your hometown, and eliminate threats to the moral standing of the people out of touch with the way the system of capitalism can be much more of a helping hand than a kick in the butt. Pause. I'm just saying, put solutions into what you say. Gather people in your hood who see some problems. Document your findings. Discuss how you can solve them. Compile everything that you need into a plan. Have fun while you're working. Tend to the land. It can be simple, even though it's never easy. But difficulty is what makes you strong. Keep breathing. I am an example to anyone who sees me of what it looks like to tell the truth, no matter who believes me. And shout out to Josh for today's conversation. It inspired these lyrics I've thrown into rotation. So pass your favorite line around like it's a blunt and show them how we get down on the expression of love. And now we can return to your regularly scheduled program.
Okay.
Because I was still on the left. So the first thing I did was I went and I researched whether or not Hamilton owned slaves, which he did. And I was mad at him. But
Yeah.
but no, he was torn. He was torn on his idea of abolition and
Which a
the
lot of them were.
abolition of slavery. And they all were.
Yeah.
Right? Thomas Jefferson, who had like hundreds.
Hmm.
His family had like hundreds of slaves, was torn about it. So like whatever. Anyway, the play itself I loved, right? Because I was a drama kid myself. I'm a rapper now.
Hmm.
Lin-Manuel Miranda is a super lyricist. People can't do what he can do. Like obviously in terms of wordplay, plenty of people can do that, but write a story in with that level of lyricism, people can't do that. So he's a hero of mine, right? Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I grew up with the guy because of In the Heights. So which is his first huge Broadway play, In the Heights.
Okay.
So I'm on New York, Washington Heights in New York. And anyway, learned about the founding fathers' positions through that, and then started looking into it. And 6 to 8 months later, after I had already kind of made the shift in my labeling of myself, realized, okay, and they too were right-leaning, and they too would have been Republican if that was a thing, which it kind of was a thing because they created a republic. They didn't create
Yeah.
a total democracy. They
Yeah.
created a constitutional republic, right?
And if you look at
For
the
those of
founding principles of the Republican Party when it started, it
yes,
was a lot of the same principles
it
that the
was the exact
founders had.
same. It was
Yeah.
the exact
Yeah.
same. He said, no, this is the Constitution. I'm going to, speaking for Lincoln here, I'm going to adhere to the principles of this Constitution. Yeah, we still need some
Hmm.
amendments. We still need to
Hmm.
add to it, but the whole thing is important, right? And
Hmm.
the Federalists, the way that the Federalist Papers or the Federalist whatever expands on what's important about the Constitution is the way that we're going to run the country. And so he started the Republican Party because the
Hmm.
founding fathers wanted to create a republic.
Hmm.
And for those of you listening, the difference between because I didn't know this myself, so just in case you didn't know, the difference between a constitutional republic, which is where you live, if you're in the United States of America, and a complete democracy, which is a misnomer when people use that to describe American economics and politics, is the ideals between the two. The ideal of a total democracy is universal equality. The ideal of a constitutional republic is individual liberty. Universal equality is only possible via force because people are unique and people
Mm.
and absolute power corrupts.
Mm.
But liberty does not have that flaw. It has its flaws.
Mm.
Liberty comes with responsibility, right? Freedom comes with
Hmm.
responsibility, and people are not inherently responsible. Responsibility has to be instilled into a child so that they carry it
Hmm.
out as an adult. But when we fail to do that as parents, people are not naturally responsible.
Hmm.
Sorry,
Hmm.
some are.
No.
So there are
Hmm.
examples, right? There's exceptions to every rule, but most people are lazy. Most people are cowardice. Most people are
Hmm.
vindictive, and I want to get you back, tit for tat,
Hmm.
kind of. That's where we are naturally because our bodies, our flesh, right, which
Hmm.
cage us in quote unquote sin, is what makes it that way. Our bodies have desires, and your
Hmm.
mind is
Hmm.
supposed to help you transcend your animal instinct. And so um so there's that. That's how I got to the founding fathers and started agreeing with the founding fathers and speaking well on the name of Thomas Jefferson, which a leftist would never
Hmm.
do, you know. It's like he
Not
literally
anymore.
was, you know, he was breeding with unwilling participants on
Hmm.
his plantation. He was not a good man by
Hmm.
any standard, but he did great things. And he had
Hmm.
a great
Hmm.
mind, and we can't take that away from him because he was engaged in practices that he didn't accept were wrong until late in his life.
Hmm.
And we
Hmm.
judge him, you know, we wrongfully judge him, although we also rightfully judge him. It's complicated when it comes to
Yeah.
500, 600 years ago.
No, I get you.
But I did go through a socialist phase as well, where I thought the government should be providing everything to the homeless and should be, you know,
Hmm.
providing everything to the those that cry out and ask for money. But that was just naivety. That
Hmm.
was just under the assumption that everybody was like me, and once I had enough, then I would stop calling to the government. I would be able to start my own thing, not knowing that again, most people are cowardice, most people are kind of lazy, most people are vindictive. I didn't know that. I had the assumption that most people are inherently seeking to do good by everyone else, when in fact most people are seeking to do good for self.
Well, it's a naive, it's a childish um position that the left will get you when you're young and idealistic, and you have that kind of, if we all just, we'll all just join hands, and everything will be fine. And as soon as you start realizing, okay, well, yeah, what about the bad guys out there? Because kids are not, thankfully, they're usually not exposed to all that at an early age, and so they don't think in terms of, oh, okay, here's all the bad creepy guys. That's why you have to tell them, don't just, trust any stranger you meet, because they don't think in terms like that. And so
Right.
that's how the liberals get you, or the socialists get you, is like, yeah, everything will be wonderful, not realizing those are the bad guys who are telling you, hey, here's your socialist candy and everything's going to be wonderful, and they're in the creepy van of communism that's going to make it a dystopian hellhole, and be a totalitarian. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I actually, when I was on the left, I always liked the founding fathers. I was able to separate in my
Because you
mind.
lighter skinned than me.
There you go. That's it. That's the whole reason. No, no. I was able to, I was able to separate in my mind, their flaws from their ideals. And when I looked at their
Okay.
ideals, I loved revolutionaries. Like I always loved, like you went and you fought the British Empire. Like that's gangster, like I like that, like, and those guys were willing to die and put their, what is it, their life, their sacred honor and their fortunes in order to be free. And over some stuff now that we accept like nothing, like, oh,
Yeah.
3% tax on my stamps, let's go to war, like they were like, I respected that. And I respected the structure that they set up, minus the slavery, but the way that they set up this constitutional republic, I thought it was a brilliant concept. I've always loved, liberty and freedom, and they set up a brilliant structure. So I always thought like it was great. They just didn't do it perfectly. And if we stuck to the ideals of it, it would be a great idea. And I guess I was different from a lot of leftists and seeing, that that's a good idea if you actually do it. But so it was an easy transition back for me to the ideals of the way this republic was set up. And also it's, for me, it's based on the Bible. So it all
Well,
comes
it
back to
is.
that. It all comes back to that,
Yeah.
because I believe the Bible is the truth, and from there, the country was built on these kind of classical Protestant view of the Bible, and it's structured in a way that's based on Bible principles. And
Yeah.
so, that's my foundation.
100%. And it's so I got into conservatism, and that brought God back into my life. But I also
Mm,
grew up going to church every Sunday.
okay.
I just didn't like it, and I didn't listen and
Hmm.
all of that because I was a kid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
um, um, conservative, wanting to conserve the good in me and the good in my community brought the necessity of God back into my life, because again, God gives meaning to
Mm,
purpose,
mm.
right? Purpose gives happiness, and happiness needs meaning, right? Otherwise, it's just a fleeting, hormonal,
Chemical.
biochemical
Yep.
phenomena that comes and goes. But if it has meaning, well,
Mm,
that meaning has to come from somewhere, and that somewhere is somewhere that we can't describe, but
mm,
it's God.
mm.
And yeah, the Bible. Now I'm a little non-traditional with my belief in God. I'm a monotheist, and I
Hmm.
believe that the Bible is the word of God for sure,
Okay.
even translated in English and all of the whole nine. But I
Hmm.
also think there are other forms of the word of God, right? I think there are very godly Buddhists. I think there are very devilish Buddhists. I think there are
Hmm.
very godly Jews. Well, that's still kind of the Bible, but whatever. And I think there are very devilish Jews. I think there are very godly Hindus. I think there are very devilish Hindus.
But would you
There are other
separate?
forms of word of God, in my humble opinion. I don't know,
Uh-huh.
that didn't just come to the Hebrews, although I think the Hebrews are a chosen people to spread a message, and that's what we are chosen for,
So
spread the message.
can you separate the idea of, because I hear good godly people among ABC, whatever, different religions, all
Mhm.
these different people,
Mhm.
versus what they teach, you know, as being something that is, you know, 100% accurate, true.
Mhm.
Can you separate the two and say, you know, because I can agree with the people part and say that, and a lot of Christians, get mad at you if you say this nowadays, but if you read Romans chapter 1 and Romans chapter 2, Paul is very clear that if you don't know any better, God judges you based on what you know, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
He's very clear on that. The Gentiles who have not the word of God, when they do by nature the things that are in the word, you know, in the word, they are conscious unto themselves.
Mhm.
Their actions accusing or else excusing them, by, you know, so they're judged based on what they know, right? And he lays down what those things all men know in Romans chapter 1. They know that it's not natural, for, you get, where's my electrical outlet, and my electrical outlet and plug, right? They know the way men and women are supposed to interact versus the way men and women interact in some of these pagan cultures, right? They know it's wrong. He breaks that down in
Yes.
Romans 1.
Yes.
And he
Yes.
says,
Sorry.
they say all men know, you know, these basics of what's right and wrong. They know that there's a God because nature, right? It speaks to the existence of this wasn't an accident, right? So they have that basics, and they can be judged, and they will be judged based on what they know. And so there are, people are going to get mad at me for that, but I'm telling you, just read Romans 1 and Romans 2 again. There are people who are judged as following all the light that they know, and will be in heaven, who never knew the things that we know about the Bible. But that doesn't mean that, where I would separate that from is, that doesn't mean that their faith systems, whether it's Buddhist or
Mhm.
Islam or whatever, that
Mhm.
does not mean that those are accurate. Um, and it does not mean that they should be left among those, or believing those things, because those things, pagan religions, whatever, they are likely to corrupt those people and make it so it's harder for them to find God.
Okay.
Whereas,
Well, let me jump in here,
okay,
because that's where I would disagree
okay,
on the. Well, first, I agree that it would make sense that if we have the ability to reason and be rational, that a higher order of intelligence has even more capacity to be rational. And so that God wouldn't say, unless you follow this super exclusive belief system, you're not getting a good afterlife, right? Whatever the afterlife is.
well, I mean, and you think of
I think
people
he
who never even
definitely
had the
would judge you.
opportunity.
Well, this is where I'm agreeing with you. I think he definitely would
Yeah,
judge you based on what you have access to. You know what I'm saying?
did
What you
God
know.
create these people, for, who lived for how many generations, never had access to the Word of God, never had access to the Bible, and they're just automatically damned,
Right.
because
That
of
doesn't make
that?
sense.
Romans doesn't paint that picture. It
Right.
doesn't.
And so I agree there, but where I disagree is the notion that the pagan religions and the non-pagan polytheistic religions of the past, and like the nature gods of ancient Egypt and stuff like that,
Uh-huh.
are likely to corrupt someone. I think flesh is likely to corrupt someone, not the holy text. And here's my unfinished theory about the whole thing.
Okay.
I think in more ancient times, God came and spoke to people and gave direct messages and messaging to people via nature, until God saw it was time to come to the Hebrews in a different way. And even Moses was get the burning bush,
Mm-hmm.
and Moses had control of the water. He could turn the water into blood. He could part the sea. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of nature God, if you will, in the one true God, in terms
Well,
of
using
the
nature to
communication
speak.
and the direct connection. But because God can't show up to you in his true form. First of all, you would be a part of his true form because you're a child of God. And so that does mathematically doesn't work. And then also it's too much. One couldn't comprehend, right? The whole universe you can't. It's too much. And
Okay.
so I think that nature is how the communication was going for the first, let's say, couple 100,000 years of God's children.
Hmm.
Then Great Reset, Adam and Eve, you know, Adam and Eve through present day was taught more directly, as well as 10 Commandments and a whole lot of laws and things directly to people like Abraham, Moses, and the Hebrews and Israelites, if you will. And that these nomadic people were, first of all, they're nomads, so they're already set up to spread a message of some kind, right? They don't have a homeland until they do.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I'm going to present myself not only in the most clear way, but also in the most practical way, right? I show up as a masculine. You call me he because a father figure sets the rules, right? If a mother figure sets the rules, you may be a little inclined to lean more towards compassion than justice when justice is what's needed. So a father figure is how I'm coming to you now. And I'm going to send my son, and he's also going to be a father figure. And so there's more practicality and more clarity, I think, in how God showed up 2,000 years ago versus how he showed up 40,000 years ago in nature. And this is what I think the nature gods and the polytheism and the Hinduisms and the other things get their accuracy from. It's not in historical happenings between humans, but in communing with nature and understanding nature, as well as psychedelic experience.
So this is an interesting conversation. And I don't agree, but I hear you. My mind when I hear it, because I want to hear your perspective and how you connect these things.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you what do you think about secret societies?
Get a little more specific for me.
So, okay, I mean, Skull and Bones,
Mhm.
the
Do they exist? Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That
do they exist?
how
Have you
effective
looked
are
much?
they?
Yeah,
With
I
what?
mean,
Mhm.
how much have you looked into the fact of, number one, that they exist, number two, their members, or generally, it seems like their members are in positions of power in the world, and number
Mhm.
three, what they believe.
Um, so with them, the chaos is the point, right? They want to maintain high levels of chaos everywhere the um so that on the bottom the blind are leading the blind, and on the top
Yeah,
the invisible are leading the blind.
yeah, yeah,
And that structure is only possible when everybody is chaotic and everybody is fighting over race and gender pay gaps and fucking whatever, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's only possible with that. And so how effective are they? I'd say probably a good upwards of 75% effective.
Hmm.
Obviously,
Hmm.
if they were 100% effective, we wouldn't be on Zoom right now
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
freely. That's right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so there, I think there's an element of good always ends up winning in the end to secret society's effectiveness, but I also think that they are very effective, and they have duped a lot of people into believing the borderlines are real, into believing the um that men are that you're just born good and you're just born
Hmm.
special,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is a part of the chaos. It's not true. Um
What
and
about,
and things like
okay.
race are real. Sorry, go ahead.
What about have you looked much into their religious views? So let's say, for example, the Bohemian Grove, some of the occult views that those kind of hierarchy people, I mean, they'll believe in things like the Kabbalah, or which I am in no way recommending. I'm bringing it up,
Mhm.
connecting it to evil
Mhm.
powers that be, or the let's say, for example, the morals and dogma, the kind of philosophy behind Freemasonry, the Scottish Rite, or even Blavatsky, the kind of high priestess of Freemasons and so forth. That goes into their philosophical and religious views. How familiar are you with that stuff?
Two things. One, I think I'm starting to get where this line of questioning is coming from, and I think we're gonna end up on common ground at the end. Second thing,
Okay. Okay.
to answer your question,
because I think you see where I'm going with it now, right? Where it's
a
like,
little bit. I wanna let you
okay,
get there, but I
okay,
think
okay.
I'm starting to see their obsession with performing miracles is a manifestation, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. I don't have confirmation here.
Okay.
But their obsession with performing miracles is their attempt at playing God, which is the main purpose of Lucifer, right? Or Satan, or whatever name, the fallen angel. The main purpose is to play God. So their obsession with performing miracles by any means necessary has evolved, just like, let's say, the good guy's obsession with following the direction and instruction of God and becoming more and more like his son, works over there. Their team is, into the whole the Kundalini yogas and the, like you said, the Kabbalah, or Kabbalah, I guess is how you're supposed to pronounce it. Whatever, the 13 floors
All I know is
of
Madonna's
your
part of it,
soul.
so I don't want to mess with it.
Basically,
Yeah.
all of that is surrounding what human beings actually are capable of with our mind, both if we follow God and if we follow Lucifer. We're capable because we are the ones sitting in the middle that have the flesh and the mind, right? Angels just have the mind, and so that's just directly programmable by God. And then animals, or nature, which is created by God, just has the body. So we seem to sit in the middle. And in the middle, we have freedom of choice. God gives us instruction and also creates a snake. There was no snake before God created snakes. You know what I'm saying? Also creates a fallen angel. Whatever makes sense is all of this creation is here, and we sit in the middle with the freedom to choose to go toward the snake or go towards the unknown almighty power that created us. And I think that the secret societies are trying to get as many people obsessed with performing miracles and manifesting their best life and gaining fame from not a whole lot of hard work. You know what I'm saying? Not doing anything of substance at all, just being famous, because you manifested it and you're so powerful and you're just like God and all of that, which is nonsense. I'm not promoting that.
Okay.
I think that's what it is. I think it's very simple. I think that when we, and I'm not accusing you of this, but I think that when we boogeyman secret societies and high, the most powerful people in the world, I think we lose sight that they're not winning all of their battles, right? And there's infighting there. Right. There's a lot of evidence that Trump himself is a Freemason and was chosen and whatnot. Right. The predictions that he would be president 20 years ago, the Simpsons and stuff, 10, 13 years ago, however many that was. And his sort of quiet rise to billionairehood. And then suddenly he's president of the United States. And he's not necessarily presidential. Right. Which is what they like to say about Mr. DeSantis now, is he's more presidential Trump. there's a lot, but it's a secret society. Unless you're in the club, and then if you're in the club and you speak against the club, you're gonna die. So you don't really want to
Hmm.
join the club
Hmm. Hmm.
to try
Hmm.
to change it from the inside if you're smart. So I think they're losing some battles. I think they do have a majority of the United States population fooled, but I think
Hmm.
they're losing some battles, and I think
Yeah.
that God is good. And I think that God is more powerful than any secret society or conglomerate of secret societies. And the misuse of performing miracles, which again, I think all human beings have capacity to do, not equally, but capacity, um, is their obsession, and they like to do that, but their mission is the chaos. Their mission is the confusion. Their mission is the befuddlement of your average guy so that he doesn't straighten himself up and follow God.
Okay. Okay. So just so that we can see if you were correct in guessing where I was going with it,
Right.
I'll clarify where I was going with that. When I have looked into, the writings of not, and I don't recommend looking into this stuff because personally I think this stuff is satanic. So, but the occult views of people who have these secret societies, whether it's Blavatsky or the Kabbalah or Morals and Dogma, you see a thread that is all similar. And by the way, I would recommend if anybody wants to study more into this, there is a gentleman named Walter Veith. And he has a lecture called The Secret on Secret Societies, and he breaks it down because he has all the books, including like Morals and Dogma, shows you scans of the books because his family was highly involved. And so he inherited these books, and shows, here's the page, the facsimile page of it, pictures of the book, But when you look into what they believe, it's basically identical to what the ancient, animalism and occult, pagan religions believe. They're identical. And so what I find ironic, I'm, like I said, I'm from Central California, Salinas. Nearby is a town called Santa Cruz, which is very well known for being like hippietopia, right? It's like all the hippies, and you got your crystals, and not to mock people and stuff, but you know what I mean? It's
I
funny,
got
right?
crystals, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not to mock, but I'm saying, that whole kind of vibe of like, tie dye and all that kind of stuff. But it has that kind of new agey religion. It's very popular in that area, but they're extremely far left. They're liberals, right? And so, and they all hate Bush. And I always thought it was ironic that it was like George Bush is skull and bones, and he believes in all this. If you look at the Bohemian Grove and all that, they have idols, and they believe in all this occultism and ancestor worship and nature worship. And then you look at this far left liberal hippie in Santa Cruz who hates Bush, and they believe in the ancestor worship and the occultism, and they have the same views. And so I like when that's why I say, okay, I can on the one hand say I do believe that there are people in all these different religions who God's going to judge based on what they know. I don't believe that their teachings are from God. I think what's more likely, what actually is what they say in their writings. When you look into
Well,
Blavatsky and so
some
forth,
examples of their
that
writing. There's examples
yeah,
that hit points correctly, and then there's examples that are very popular that don't hit points correctly. And we can't misunderstand popularity for the origins. You understand what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
what got popular first is usually what human beings call the origins of, but that's usually not accurate.
I do think that you can make a strong argument that essentially what is happening is those fallen angels that you were talking about, those
Mhm.
are the ones who were speaking to these pagan cultures and giving
Mhm.
them these revelations. And
That's
that
interesting.
and
That's
that is where
interesting.
it's come from, and that is why those people, if you look at Kabbalah and Blavatsky and so forth, that's why the depth, the height of their worship is worshiping of fallen angels, and
Well,
so that
check
is
this out,
why
right?
it's diametrically opposed to the Bible, which came in and said, okay, break down all those altars and don't have,
Hmm.
you need to convert those pagans, and all that stuff is false. So
Hmm.
I view it as butting heads, and they're completely opposite.
Right. Well, and the
My
same book
that's
also says, like you said, um, or let's say the same book also promotes the same word, excuse me, also promotes meeting people where they are practically.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, breaking down like going into the town square and breaking down the idol, sure, awesome. But going into everybody's individual house is not the way to it doesn't make sense. You're going to create anti-Christians by only using force and only using the right. only discipline, only
yeah,
masculine,
yeah,
only,
yeah, yeah.
which is kind of funny and ironic. But
It's interesting. It's an interesting discussion.
nothing.
I definitely don't think, we don't have to come to an agreement on it here, but I'm
No,
just
no, no,
trying
no,
to
no. I
lay
think
aside my
I
my
think we're
view.
headed towards common ground. There's not an agreement. Just yeah, where we understand where we differ and then whatever. But I think we agree. First of all, we agree on a lot. We agree
Hmm.
that the Bible is the word of God. We
Hmm.
agree that I think we would agree that neither yourself or myself can use the Bible to fully understand God's mind, but we can do our best, right? We can
Yeah,
do our
yeah. I
best,
mean,
but we're not gonna.
I don't think any finite being can ever fully understand the infinite.
Right. It
Uh,
wouldn't mathematically make sense. So
no.
so so there's that, and we agree that both Satan and or Lucifer, whatever, and uh the divine principle has introduced tools to use to convince people to go either way. God introduced not only the Bible, but he also sent his only begotten son, and he also provided means of performing miracles as well as great wealth and fame for, like, the Solomons and the Abrahams and things, up to his chosen people, to which
Hmm.
again, only chosen to spread a message, right? Chosen people does not mean God loves you more. It means you're supposed to spread a message. That's what
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
means. You're chosen to
Hmm.
spread a message. You are not elevated to something higher than the non-Hebrew, the non-Israelite.
Mm.
I digress. Tools were used to convince people of both paths, you could say, of both paths. We can imagine the fork in the road, this way to God, this way to Satan, right?
Hmm.
On both paths, you have people performing miracles, right? Most famous on the God path, Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
Plenty of miracles, right?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
also have Moses. You have plenty of miracles on this side. On this
Hmm.
side, you got the hippie movement with the crystals and the manifestation candles and the
Yeah, yeah.
right
And there's some
the
real stuff that
idols,
happens on that side.
the ancestors.
And
But
by
your ancestors
real,
are also, well.
go ahead.
Let me ramble for a quick sec,
No,
Josh.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Um, on this side, on the God side, you also have ancestors. You don't have worship of ancestors, but they're not. You have an afterlife, right? You have an afterlife. People, I'm not talking about ghosts showing up or whatever, but you have non not unholy instances where you can have a dream, you can have a whatever, somebody comes to you that's not here physically, that's not in flesh, and helps you on your path, right? And then on the Satan side, you have like the total worship of and the dogma of ancestral, like use the ancestors to get what you want. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? But
Hmm.
none of the thing, and then you live on Earth. So with the crystals and the things, it's all Earth. It all can be thanked, and thank you for being here. I wouldn't be able to walk unless I had a surface. So I appreciate the Earth, and I would hug a tree, sure, but I wouldn't get lost and think that the tree was God. I would know that there's something higher than I can hug, um, who not only created but sustains. Who's the boss? Just to make it very simple. And so
Mhm.
the devil's gonna come to you in in as much God as he can manage and as
Mhm.
you can
Mhm.
understand.
Yep,
And so this
I agree with
side
that.
looks like God a little bit, and this side looks like God a little bit. Neither one can actually encompass God because God is the creator of all sides and of the one who can choose a side. I
I
said
guess
the creator,
that's
not the
where we differ.
perpetuator. God doesn't make you sin. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying the sole creator of the universe itself is not Satan. Satan was a part of the creation.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I agree with
Satan has a creator. The creator does not. The creator is
yeah,
self-created.
okay, I agree with that. Yeah.
So that's all. I don't mean God is making you sin. I don't mean that.
Okay.
And sometimes it's hard to, right? Because I mean, you're talking about something that we'll never understand anyway. So it's hard to word
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
things that are beyond reality itself. But either way, this side looks attractive and godly for the miracle kind of jargon, and then this side actually also has miracles and is the for simplicity reasons the correct way to go. Both are compelling, and I think that you can start here and end up here. I think that you can start here and end up here.
I guess where I would disagree is where you see parallels between the two sides, I see them as diametrically opposed. So I see, that the the paganism and the heathen religions were all I think are all meant to lead us astray, that were put here by Satan, that were and their teachings, when you look at the teachings of them versus the Bible, it's diametrically opposed. One is meant to conquer the other is trying to subvert the other, and I see them as diametrically opposed. I will agree, and that's what I was going to say on the when you were talking about miracles on both sides. I will agree that there are real things going on that other side, and by real I mean not real like keep it real and it's good, but like real like Satan can do miracles too. And I think
Yeah.
when you look at that, the perfect story that encapsulates the reason why I believe the Bible and not any other of these religions, and I believe it's accurate and the other ones are false, is because like you look at the example of the Moses story, where he came with the 10 plagues, and the first 3 plagues they could replicate with their enchantments. The Bible says with their enchantments they were able to replicate them because Satan can do miracles. He's a an incredible supernatural being with all these powers. He can do stuff, and so when his followers do things that he has prescribed them to do, he can make the miracles happen to confirm, oh yeah, you've tapped into something, right? But he could only go so far, and there was a limit where the magicians came to Pharaoh and said, look, we can't do those things, this is the hand of God, and it kept going. There was 7 more plagues where they couldn't even touch. And so just briefly to tell you, and I guess this is like a closing thought
Yeah.
on my view on it. The reason why I'm a Christian today, I was not raised in a real Christian home. I mean, we went to
Mhm.
church on Easter and Sunday, but not
Okay.
really. It was like Catholic. It was like I remember I asked my mom when I was growing up, hey, are we Christian or Catholic? And or what's the difference? And she says, well, the Catholics have the Pope and Christians don't. And that was the extent of what she understood. I was like, which one are we? And she was like, well, we go to a Catholic church on Christmas, so I guess we are, but I was never catechism or any of that. And what I did when I was about 18, 19 years old is I started to study all the world's religions, whether it was, astrology or Buddhism or Islam. I went and talked to imams at mosques. I talked to the Jehovah's Witness and the Mormons, and talked to all these different ones. And what I was looking for was two things. Number one, I needed evidence that this is true. I need you to prove it to me. I don't want you to just say it sounds nice, it's a good theory. I need proof, evidence. And oftentimes that comes in the form of miracles, but it's more than that. And the second thing I needed was I needed it to be generally a good belief system, because you could prove to me theoretically at this time when I'm 18 and I didn't know, you could theoretically prove to me that God exists. But if you show me that he's, and he's not, so I'm not saying this, but if in theory you were to show that he's this horrible dragon that's really mean, then I don't want anything to do with him, right? Thankfully, that's not the case. He is love, right? But I found those two things, and I could only find them in the Bible. And the way that and this really is a fundamental bedrock to my conservatism and my political theory and everything is based on that book, based on the Bible, is because you can, for example, you can find the enchantments on the other side. Just like Moses was able to say, hey, I threw my staff down and it became a snake.
Yep.
They can do it too. They can throw their staff down and it becomes a snake too. But there's a limit
They
to
can't
the
rain
things
fire.
that they can do.
Right.
They can't. Well, Revelation
or
13.
not like that.
Revelation 13, they will bring fire down from heaven at the end. And so God's going to let him at some point get to that point of allowing those kind of miracles. But there's a limit to the amount of things. And historically, if you look at, I'm a creationist. I heard you mention Adam and Eve and 40,000 years. And, I would disagree. I'm a young earth creationist. So I think when you look at things like the fact that nature and science backs up the biblical account in Genesis, or if you look at things like prophecy, the way that you're able to tell the future before it happens, there are limits to things where you're not going to find that amount and that extent of miracles on that side. And then you're also going to say, okay, well, one says this, the other says that, and they're diametrically opposed in their teaching. So I see a war between the two, and I see evidence thoroughly backing one side, and I see a staff being able to be thrown down on the other side. You know what I mean? Little step, but not enough to convince me that this is from God. More like they got a couple little tricks that they can do because the devil will help them. So that's my view. Now, I mean, it doesn't agree with a lot of people.
Like I said,
like I said
before, it agrees on a lot of points. It doesn't doesn't fundamentally, let's say, level out on the exact same, but we're not supposed to be the exact same, but you just looking at it as a war versus and diametrically opposed things versus looking at it as similarities doesn't mean we disagree that there are similarities in general, and doesn't mean that we disagree on people are fooled going to this side. People are fooled into it because, well, that's that trickery, foolery, trickery, fox like sly fox tactics. That's how the devil gets you. Hey, eat this apple. You're gonna have great knowledge. You'll be just like God. Eat this apple, or just take a bite.
Yep.
Don't even eat the whole thing. Just take a bite. Oh, and share some with him. It's that's how they get you. So I don't think we disagree on all points, bro. I haven't
not all.
Yeah, I haven't heard a whole lot of disagreement. Where we differ is that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't see let's say the direct word of God until the Torah and the Bible. And I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Hebrew tradition, I think it's pretty clear that there was an oral tradition of the same things, the same account, like the Genesis account, for example, or the account of, the flood. Like there was an oral tradition before, and I mean, you read it in the story in the Bible, in Genesis, it talks about, okay, Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they didn't have a written word, but they, Abraham told, Isaac, and Isaac told Jacob, it was an oral tradition. And when Moses came, it was, I imagine by that point, it was probably God coming in and saying, well, let me clarify. It's been a couple thousand years since the Genesis account. Let me, some of this stuff might have gotten a little confused. Let's write it down, so I do believe in that. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I do think that from Genesis, you can draw a direct line from the descendants of Seth and, Adam and Eve and Seth through the Israelites, and that there was a side that chose the side of the God of creation, and a group of people, and that is why, that was, and because of Abraham's decision, that's why they, were the chosen people to continue with that. Hey, we have the direct message from God, and it's our job to spread it, right? Not that we're any better, but we have chosen to align ourselves with that, with God's direct message, and we're going to it's our job to spread it. And then there was also a side of, Nimrod and Cain, in the land that he created, or his area, Nimrod, and the land of Shinar and Canaan, and you look at their religious beliefs, and it was diametrically opposed. And those were the people that I see connected to evil people who rule the world now. And that's why I brought in the secret societies, and they have the same views, and it's just, you can draw that direct line, which is why they were Freemasons, because they draw their lineage back to Nimrod and the builders of,
basically
the pyramids.
Basically to Cain.
Yeah. Moloch and all those kind of, all that stuff. And the ancient Egyptian religions, they draw their, to the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Kabbalah. And I think all of those things are one stream that is inspired by Satan and is on that side and is meant to be the counter. Whereas, there's a war. It's a cosmic war, that's how I view it.
And what's good about this whole thing too, Josh, is we can disagree.
Yeah, we can disagree
on the most important conversation, and it just be that we disagree, right?
Yes.
Whereas with leftism, if you dare disagree, if you dare
wow.
call someone a hippie, or something like that, if you dare say that's unwise behavior, that let's say hypersexual whatever is unwise, that's not wise behavior. If you dare disagree with the, let's say, the far left, let's not single out everyone on the left, okay, you're not allowed,
Well, and that's the beauty of America too, right? That was part
Absolutely.
of why the Pilgrims fled. There was people who were using the Bible to make it so that you could not teach certain views about the Bible in Europe. And so they were, okay, if you disagree with the Pope, we're gonna come after you. And people getting burned at the stake and stuff.
Yep.
And whereas in America, okay, we can have these discussions, and that will ultimately lead, if allowed to have, it'll ultimately lead a lot of people to, I believe, discover the truth, just by following those principles of, I'm going to go with what is true, not based on how I was raised or what I want to be true or whatever. I'm just going to keep, just like a laser. I want to keep learning and keep finding out what's true. And, for me, that led me to the Bible. And that's informs all my conservatism based on that,
100%. Hey man, look, This has been super fun. There's two things I want to do. I want to show you some of the music because you asked me before we got
Yes.
on air what
Okay.
kind of music that I make and that I like to make. So I'm gonna show you a song or maybe two if you feel like listening to another one after first.
Okay.
And then I have a one last question that I'll ask you
Okay.
after that. So I also write a rap verse for all of my interviews, so there'll be a rap verse in the middle of this episode.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah, I'm trying to define what's less than, as if I fear that I am the next end to be left when this world lives on. Can't be stuck in old waters when they send us on our next swim. Can't stay on.
Have you
So
ever
yeah,
heard
man.
of your flow is impeccable. I love your flow. I love your voice. Definitely, it's clear you got some skills on writing lyrics.
I
No,
appreciate it, man.
it's stylistically, I'm just like I'd
Yeah.
applaud, but I don't want to be too loud on the microphone. But yeah, no, that was dope. That was dope, man.
Thank
Like,
you.
and your wife as well, going from
Yeah.
singing and then rapping, both were she was killing it.
Yeah.
Like that is, I'm floored, man. That was really good. You guys need to get in the studio more. Have you ever heard of Blue in Exile?
Yeah. Come on, man. Yeah,
Okay, so
they were
you remind me
killing
a
the
little bit
underground
of,
for like 5 years.
yeah, you remind me a little bit of Blue, a little bit,
Hmm.
just kind of the vibe, not
That's a big
necessarily.
compliment.
Yeah, yeah. So no, it's dope. I like it.
Take over conservative rap because most of it's whack. I mean, like 99%.
Probably just got home. She said we need to take over conservative rap because most of it's
Let's
whack.
do it.
Let's do it,
Let's
man.
do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. No, I love it. I love the vibe too. It's that laid back kind of intelligent vibe. I love that. That's yeah.
I feel
Have
like,
you,
the poetry is lost on the youth. You know what I'm saying? I started rapping seriously, not recording, but rapping seriously because I was already recording it. After I joined a poetry organization and was in it for 3-4 years. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
Once that became a highlight in my life, and I got, we did things together, and we would spit our poems on the chopping block and get critiqued by the whole crew, and and get roasted if
Spoken
it was
word.
whack, but the art of using literary devices to either tell a story or to make a point or both is lost, I think, in a lot of the culture today. You know what I'm saying? And I think God is lacking in the culture.
Yeah. You a Saul Williams fan? Saul Williams?
Saul
Williams
Williams,
fan?
yeah. I mean, I don't
Spoken word.
I don't read. Yeah, I know. I don't read or YouTube a lot of spoken word today. I did when I was in college, when I was in the crew.
I had that phase. It was bigger for slam poetry, had its kind of
that too. Yeah,
its
it
era.
went whoosh and then it kind of fizzled.
Yeah.
But plus it got politicized, right? It only left leaning poetry was admissible after a while, and so everything that happens to fizzles out, right? That's why stand-up comedy has fizzled out, because only left-wing
it's no fun
jokes
anymore
are permissible now.
if it's all
So and I mean, stand-up comedy was way bigger than spoken word poetry.
Yeah.
In terms of the
and it's
fandom.
dead.
But
and it's dead.
It fizzled out the same way.
Yeah.
But I think God is missing from rappers' content now. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
people are either afraid to talk about God in a objective way where we have rules that we're not following and we need to clean up our act, or they talk about God in this way.
Yeah. No, it's but I will say that working with young people, they know that their music's trash nowadays, and they love 90s 2000. They love that kind of old school hip hop. They are all about it. I mean, these kids are just, you constantly seeing Tupac shirts and all this kind of stuff. They love that old 90s stuff because they know it, like you were saying, there was just more soul in the music back
Yeah.
then. It was just, it was freer, and some of this stuff I won't listen to anymore because it's, the message is garbage, but the level of artistry, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close, compared to the garbage. I mean, there's a few bright, shining lights nowadays, but even then it's like, we're still talking about the same stuff that they were talking about in the 90s. Like, we're still talking about selling drugs. And like, okay. But no, I love this style. I want to hear the other song. Have you listened to any of mine yet?
No, it's on
Kali
your.
share?
I haven't. Nah, not yet.
Yeah, I could give you a link.
Absolutely, you can play a song too if you want.
Yeah, I can. Let's see. How do I?
Let me give you co-host permissions. Oh, but I try to for like every verse now, I try to put either the word God or something significant that God said and God passed down.
Okay.
In every verse now. So that, like I said, that song is years old now. I was still very much again a liberal, but not a leftist at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I was really a leftist on for a while was abortion, and then I read the facts, and yeah, like I said, I'm totally conservative now.
Mm. Gotcha,
Like
gotcha.
get rid of it, except for this way less than 1% case.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
That's what they say. Oh, you swear. The revolutionary gets paid. Nowadays, you could be the face of a major ad campaign.
No, that's dope, man.
Yeah. You recognize the beat?
Huh?
You recognize the beat?
Something in it. Right now,
That's
something.
That's a Nas beat.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all these are all they're all stolen beats.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
yeah.
that's where that's where we start until we have. I mean, look, producers are expensive.
Yeah.
Especially if you want an exclusive, somebody that works with you a lot.
Yeah.
Then
So
that's gonna add up.
the irony was that beat is for Nas's song Louis Farrakhan, which, obviously is a buddy. It was a buddy of Kaepernick, and it kind of shows the hypocrisy of Kaepernick to to talk about these things over that beat.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so anyway, but there's one political song I got on there. The other on there is it's all mostly religious songs. I got one song for Kali, and then I have some more political stuff coming out shortly.
You got a song for Kali?
Yeah, there's one on there for Kali. And then
that's what's up.
I got one coming on Cesar Chavez. It deals with immigration. I kind of, I'm a teacher, so I like to, get across a message. I'm sure you could hear there was a message in there. And then I have another one I'm working on one right now on Trump, actually.
Okay.
So more specifically on people turning on Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, look, that makes sense.
So
that makes sense.
Fun stuff.
For real. So I worked with kids too for about 8 years, 7-8 years or so. I worked with kids both in after school and summer camp settings, and as well as a floating substitute. And so that's been a huge part of my mission as a lyricist as well, is making sure that what they hear either teaches them something like math, you know what I'm saying, or something like that. And I don't mean that in the same capacity as like a kid's cartoon show will have cool little raps about 2 + 2 = 4. But I mean like statistically this doesn't make sense. Like you said about the cops, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Although you did generalize, I mean, you know what I'm saying? In that one song you said they only go there to solve to
Of
basically make the
course.
violence go away. But I
Of
mean,
course. It's a song you
you
got to
can
speak
only
in
say
general
so
terms.
much in a 16.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
for sure. For sure. No, I freely admit to that. It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
generalization.
It
But
was a purposeful generalization.
yeah. Yeah.
And I agree with that part of it for sure, and I agree with everything else you said in the song. I would have put the second verse first though if I was you,
Oh yeah.
because I think you said what you wanted to say in the second verse.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying?
Yeah,
Little
yeah.
advice: say what you want to say first, and then say the cool shit second.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah,
know,
no, it was more I guess the intention is kind of, you want to be teachery, but you don't want to be too teachery in music. And so it was more the breakdown of the issues kind of came in the second one, whereas the first one's more creative. That was at least the logic, but I hear what you're saying. There's a valid
mhm.
argument for that too.
Yeah. So yeah. So let me share with you something more recent.
Okay.
Something a little more recent that just and I shared some of this verse actually with Kali on her episode just a couple days back. But it's a good one. I think it's necessary for the culture, and it shows you how much more God I put into my bars.
Okay.
So check this out. I say, an arsonist with the fire, I spit in rhymes now. Remember spitting late night until I'd lie down, waiting on the moment I'd break into the escape from the greatest pain of a man's heart. But now that dream has died down, and I no longer care for fame and popularity. I'm more hopeful I'll spread the word of God carefully, from written rhymes and spitting lines locked in clarity. Let whomever hath the ears to hear it dare to be different. We in the fight to save the children from the validation they can get from gathering a following and saturating the social media with pornographic recreation that creates the stagnation of a child's maturation and leads to an addiction to the act of masturbation, abuse of the dopamine system, and a mass invasion of propaganda and slander upon the name of God. They attack babies' innocence and blaming God. Trust and believe it's possible to be saved in God, but the way they make you love yourself will leave you hating God through ignorance. So don't listen when they tell you to turn away from God. Study the ways of goodness and wisdom and pray for God to wash away the sinful thoughts in your mind and work daily to leave your losses behind. Pick up your cross and resign. The best way for me to truly get back to Christ was acknowledge where I need to make the sacrifice. To conquer self is much harder than sitting back and minding other people's business when I still can't get me past the vice. So from this moment moving forward to the afterlife, I'm committing myself to bettering the habits I've admitted in my past time that hinder how I master life. So on the day of judgment, I am welcomed in the master's eye.
Mm, mm. It's dope, man. That's dope. I like it. I like it. I love it. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good stuff. Definitely,
Yes,
definitely. We gotta do something, man.
I am willing. I am willing and able. The studio is far. You need a car.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Especially if you find one, I don't know, if you get political. The one I used to go to in California, I used to drive up to Oakland, and I would not even try to bring my political raps in there because I get kicked out of the studio.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. No, I could rap about I could rap about God and stuff, and they'd be like, okay, whatever. They don't necessarily agree, but they wouldn't care. But if I tried to go political and I'm not a liberal,
That's interesting
I get
because
kicked out the studio.
the engineers out here are usually like they just want to do a really good job with the mix. You know what I'm saying? I'm
California,
yeah. I
Oakland.
believe you.
I mean,
That's just
yeah.
perplexing. That's like wow,
Whereas
how
I got
petty.
one out here that's he's a conservative, and once we figured out we
Yeah,
were both conservatives, it was like it's I love it. Yeah, I need to go again though. I need to go more.
awesome. Well,
Yeah.
look, Josh. One last question for you to close out this
Okay.
interview. I've had a great time talking with you. Definitely, we'll have you back on the show whenever you are free. Um,
Anytime.
Thank you, brother. What is love to you at this stage of your life and understanding? What is love?
Ooh, I knew you were going to hit me with a tough one at the
It
end.
wouldn't be the Expression of Love podcast if I did not ask my guests, what does that word mean?
Yeah, I mean, the God of the Bible is love. You know, there's no greater love than this, than a man should lay down his life for his friends, which God did for us. He is love. Love in 1 Corinthians 13 is defined as love does not seek its own. In other words, it seeks the best of others, and that is what the principle of God's essence. That's what he is. He's just all about others, and the trying to help others instead of yourself, and that's the core essence of love to me, is all about worrying about others instead of yourself. And that how that is expressed leads to a lot of different things. You can spank a child for its benefit, and I'm using that as a broader metaphor for other things too. So love does not always mean wishy-washy. Sometimes it means, hey, for your own benefit, I may have to be harsh a little here and there, but it's seeking the ultimate greater good of others. And yeah, that is love. Yeah.
Beautiful answer, man. I'm compelled to give you my answer as well. I'm seeing love these days. Obviously, yeah, God is love. But I'm seeing love these days also as the coming together of two things. One of them I call true joy, the other I call true understanding. True understanding is an understanding that goes beyond words, because when you truly understand something, words no longer apply to the depth of the connection. So true understanding is like super deep connection, if you will, to simplify it.
Okay.
And then joy as a choice, not joy as just the feeling, although joy is the feeling as well. But true joy is joy when the feeling is there, and joy when the feeling is not there. And the coming together of joy and true understanding is love in my eyes when I put it like that.
It's deep. I have to marinate on it. I have to chew on that one.
For sure. For sure. Yo, fist bump, man. It's great meeting you for real.
For sure. Yeah,
This is
I
awesome.
love the conversation.
Expressions of love.